Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss how Nigel Farage, who has been cloistered from the consequences of his action and rhetoric for many years now, has started to face a little bit of scrutiny, and he is crumbling fast. So the Tory manifesto is out today. I will get around to that, but Farage and Reform have been attracting attention as well. Nigel Farage was supposed to be taking part in a leaders interview for the BBC today, but he's backed out, run away. The specific reason in this case is that his party seems to have adopted a position of being officially accepting, shall we say, of people suggesting maybe the UK shouldn't have opposed Hitler. A turn of events that came as something of a surprise to me. A rare show of honesty from them. Because last week, Nigel Farage boosted support for himself and Reform UK by raising money to take veterans to Normandy for the D-Day commemoration, while Sunak was letting everyone down. It was a stunning coup for him and an unforced error for the Tories. But Farage often talks about the Second World War, of course he does, and whenever he talks about, we won the war, it's sort of a running joke that people respond to him, no mate, your side lost. But at the weekend, a story came out that a Reform UK candidate had in the past said that the UK was wrong to have fought against Hitler, that we should have accepted his offer of neutrality. Now, you would think this would go down like a lead balloon amongst many Reform UK supporters and therefore the Reform UK leadership. You know, because the people they attract absolutely lionise anything to do with the Second World War. This is where Rishi Sunak went badly wrong when he deliberately left the D-Day commemorations during what he called the French part, because he thinks, these gammon voters, they don't like the French. I'll snub the French. They'll like that. What he fails to understand is, a lot of these voters, for whatever reason, they're quite xenophobic, don't like the French. But there is this one little snapshot in time where, as far as they're concerned, the French are them. And that is anything to do with the Second World War. No, as far as they're concerned, the French were absolutely brothers in arms, and they will have no disrespect shown to them in that context. So this candidate in question has technically apologised for saying it because they've realised actually this goes down with our voters very badly. And yet the Reform UK official channels seem to suggest there is an argument for the UK having not opposed Hitler, you know. Now, they weren't quite saying they believed the argument, but they are saying it's an acceptable argument. They didn't exactly kill the row off, shall we say. So now it's become a big thing. It's a big thing now because now people are going, hang on a minute, what is Reform UK's official position on literally opposing Nazism? Nigel Farage was inevitably going to be asked a lot of questions about it in this BBC interview. So I say a lot of questions. He need have only been asked one question, but it would be dangerous enough for him, so he's pulled out. I imagine the last thing Farage wanted to do was to be part of a programme watched by millions, explaining how there seems to be a conversation within his party about whether or not Hitler was bad. I've said before, Farage possesses enough self-awareness to understand what is and is not acceptable. You know, he's part of the reason why some things which used to be unacceptable, like, promoting BNP policies, is now more mainstream. But he always seems aware of where those boundaries currently are. One of the reasons he's so dangerous, he's not as thick as many of the munchkins in the Tory party who've been trying to play his game for so long. But Farage has shown something else this week. For years, he's gotten away without any real scrutiny. And that is because most of what people hear from him, he presents himself to the public mostly via media broadcasts where he is the presenter. So he completely controls the narrative. Sometimes he gets invited onto, say, Question Time, something like that. But then very often his views don't get any critical analysis there either. He's never really had to be questioned by people who have an interest in challenging his statements. But this is starting to happen because Nigel Farage is causing a massive problem for the Conservatives. I also wonder if it's because people are now seriously discussing the prospect of Nigel Farage carrying out a takeover, hostile or otherwise, at some point in the future, of the Conservative Party. so being taken more seriously by the media. But at the weekend, Farage went to pieces during questioning from Laura Kunsberg. Now, normally, she's pretty good at not bothering to put anyone under the cosh if they're from a right-wing party. But you see, Farage, she's conservative. And Farage is now causing a problem for the Conservatives, like I say. It's funny how she can ask tricky questions when she can be bothered. Others have picked out other holes in his spending plans as well. There's like a particular part of his part, like I think it was Dan Needle pointed out, someone's pointed out, there's a particular part of the Reform UK's manifesto which reckons they're going to be able to extract £35 billion worth of taxes on banking profits that actually only amount to 30 billion in total. I'm not sure how you tax £30 billion worth of profits to the tune of 35 billion. I mean, that is a tax rate of in excess of 100%. But, you know, apparently Nigel Farage has got a plan for it. Now, most people, of course, are not going to see this scrutiny just yet. Reform UK supporters mistrust mainstream media anyway. But it does highlight the problem which Farage would have should he actually want to take over the Conservative Party. First of all, his favourability scores are actually quite bad. They've been in the past on the same level as people like Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak, who were running the government at a time when living standards were falling. You get that. If you're the Prime Minister and you are presiding over tough economic times, whether it's your fault or not, you're going to suffer in the polls. But how does Nigel Farage have favourability ratings that are on that level when he's not actually been in power? Normally, a lot of people will give you the benefit of the doubt. You might have technically very negative ratings, but there'll be a huge chunk of people who are saying don't know. But actually, again, even that is on a similar level to the likes of Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson. It's like he's suffered the negative favourability without having presided over anything. And it's because he's liked, revered even by a significant section of the population. There's probably like a good fifth of people that go, oh, yeah, he's the one. There's maybe a few other people, oh, I'm not so sure. But he's actively disliked by most of the rest. Often you find that about 2/3 of people have an unfavourable view of him. And this is before he's been in charge of anything. You know, you couple that with the fact that he's unable to defend his policies against journalists who actually choose to give him a hard time over them. And the fact that he's now cancelled a major high-profile interview just because one of his candidates showed a bit of solidarity with Hitler at some point in the past, and Farage doesn't know how to deal with that. So what you're looking at is someone who isn't really giving the impression of being able to lead Britain into a populist abyss. Now, I don't want to sound complacent about this, but I think Farage would struggle to lead the Conservatives into power. He may struggle to lead the Conservatives at all. It's absolutely true that Farage has massive support amongst Conservative members. Also true that the far right of the party are likely to win the argument in the immediate aftermath of the election defeat. But the far right is not a happy family. They are divided. There are some who want Farage to join them, most vocally Suella Braverman. Then there are others who argue strongly against this, most recently Andrea Jenkins. Mind you, Jenkins probably won't have very much to say about the matter because I think she's going to be losing her seat in a few weeks. But there are still likely to be factional battles amongst those who do retain their seats, and they won't all welcome Farage. Some because of their own egos. They want to be leading their party. You know, they'll think to themselves, well, hang on a minute, I've done the hard times here. I've been a member of this party for ages, and I've been an MP for ages. You know, I've done the hard work. We don't want some jumped up little failed Austrian painter coming in, waltzing in and just taking over. Some because they will recognise that Farage has little substance to himself. You know, he's a good campaigner amongst a certain type of voter. But there are not enough of those voters to win power. And he's shown that he's unable to build a broad consensus. And there may be fewer of those voters still in 10 years' time. And then you add on to that the fact that Farage melts under the slightest bit of real scrutiny. And I've never been more confident that Farage is likely to fail. Like I say, I don't want to be complacent. You know, in a world where the orange one can become US president and may again, even though now he has to check in with his probation officer before each campaign event, then you can take nothing for granted. But I don't think Farage has all the tools needed to lead a populist wave. My major concern is that he probably does have the power to stop the Tories turning on Brexit for a lot longer than is helpful. Because the sooner the Conservatives see the problems that Brexit has caused them, the sooner they can realise actually they can move on by abandoning their long-term interests in it. And Farage could prevent that. And finally, a thought did occur to me today. So let us say Nigel Farage wins his Clacton seat this time. I fervently hope not, but it is, of course, a very serious risk. So let's say it would mean he'll have failed to win a Westminster seat 7 times in a row on a platform of wanting to leave the EU, and then finally succeeds on the 8th time on a platform of Brexit being a disaster. You know, just in case you think British politics can't get any more crazy. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe for further content and click the like button. You can also sign up for memberships if you'd like to support the channel further. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I'll see you later.